Hello, welcome to Creatacast with your host, David Welch, going live here on the air. So, thank you for those who have submitted. We do have some submissions, and it is awesome. Let me go back to the other account, make sure I'm on the right thing here. Just trying to get everything to work, but again, this show is going to cover some readings. I did get some submissions. Again, I'm still in the works about the digital magazine. I'm still working on how I'm going to format that, how I'm going to create it, and how I'm going to get it published in the way I published it. But it is going to be a digital magazine with those who have been picked to have been read on the air. So I am definitely working to get that resolved and get that moving forward. So we're making moves on that. Like I said, ultimately my end game with Creatacast for me, other than supplementing the show, is I want to create a scholarship. I believe that there is a platform for creative writers in podcasting. And there's a platform for, poetry, fiction, creative nonfiction, scripts, and comedic skits and everything like that to return to its roots in radio. Before the advent of television, our entertainment was told through radio, told on the waves. I'm definitely not going to Orwellian freak everybody out with some sort of space age story. But then again, I very well could, because it's kind of like sight unseen. But everyone, tuning into the show should know that it is a creative broadcast. So knowing that going into it, if you do hear, War of the Worlds-esque type of fiction being told, or the broadcast coming across as live from downtown, something like that, then you should really expect it to be a very crafty story being told. And I'm definitely taking stories written specifically for the Creatacast platform. Of course, keep it under 10 minutes. We're trying to keep everybody, or not under 10 minutes, under 10 pages. We're trying to give everybody a fair shake that does submit and gets picked to be in the show. And then, like I said, once I get the volume of subscribers, the volume of responders that I want to get towards the program, then the next transition is to open up more time for the show and definitely lead down the rabbit hole of making that work. So it's definitely something that this show is progressing towards, and I'm not looking to upset any of the creative writers out there. I do want the raw forms I want the raw workers. I want those who have not been published, and even if you have been published and you have some raw unpublished work, let us have it. Let us take a look at it, and we'll read it and we'll go through it, and if anybody's got some solid feedback, we'll find a mechanism to have somebody call in and provide their take on that work. And then, if you do call in and you want to praise some of the work, or you want to critique some of the work even, or provide some valuable feedback for that author, bring that attention to me, call in, and we'll have a dialogue about it. And then just make sure it's constructive criticism, and I will refrain from ad hominem attacks on my show. I just don't want somebody's attack on their character. And I do take submissions from everywhere. I don't care what language the submission is in. I mean, hopefully I can get an English translation. That way or even a German translation. That way I can take a look at it, dissect it, and I'm able to thoroughly examine the work and then put it on the show to make sure it's not extremely lewd or gratuitous. Yes, this is an explicit show. I do allow some salty language, but I'm not going to entertain like hardcore, word porn on here, and yeah, word porn in the sense of beautiful poetry, not word porn in the sense of, visceral details about, what two people are doing together, because that's not where I want the content of the show to go. I want the content of the show to be very story related. I want it to be very poetry based, and it is the season. The challenge issued last show was I'm looking for Christmas work. I want the holiday season work, and I want the that ability to happen. And I have been blessed enough to receive some good submissions. It wasn't, like I said, exactly in the arena I thought it was going to be, but it was definitely a very good break from the norm. So let's go ahead and switch account here, if it allows me to. Still trying to transition here and understand why I'm not able to transition seamlessly from account, but we'll figure it out. Nope. What I'm looking for. All right. For those smart cookies out there, if you know and you're listening and you know how to switch accounts on Google, let me know. In the meantime, I want to acknowledge a trend I'm seeing in British writers, and a trend I've noticed in the British writers is that they are there's almost an aversion to a large quantifiable amount of details, like the Dickens Oliver Twist and Dickens or Jane Eyre Tales of the Past. We are looking more at very character-based stories. Yes, there are details. Yes, there are battles. Yes, there is information, especially if you're writing a thriller or something, and is definitely some information out there that's amazing. Or definitely some stories out there that are beautifully crafted. So I'm acknowledging that there are a lot of good things that I'm seeing from the British writers, and I also know that, like I said, it's been more character-based storytelling, which is on a high level of amazement for me, because you get so invested in the characters, you get so invested in, and then you get the nuggets of detail that you need to put the picture together. You don't, any excess egregious amount of detail that you may pick up in some of the more, American writers, you're leaving the story a little bit more open to the imagination, and it moves along at a faster clip. Now, like I said, I'm not saying, the British writing that I've seen is, void of quality detail, but what I'm saying is it's been very meticulously meted out to provide you this, the details necessary to move the story along. And then if there's details that aren't pertinent, they're kind of, left open to the imagination of the reader. So, and I'm basing this on Westerns. I'm basing this on some of my favorite authors. Like, if you read, like, there's a marketed difference between reading Simon Scarrow, Connie Golden, and, a lot of the historical fiction writers that I read that are, British, versus reading Blood Meridian, or reading, very, who's a good example of extreme detail snob? I'm trying to think of some authors that are like, Tom Clancy, type of novels that are super detailed, but but that's what appeals to those readers, and I get that. I'm like, for me, I'm looking for a little bit easier consumption read, but that's me. That's my preference. I like there being a little open to the imagination to, meet out some of the details and allow you to envision those characters. And I do like character details. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want to see a writer describe somebody suffering for, trudging through the woods and suffering and every little ant bite, every little thing. And they're suffering. They're going through the woods. And yes, the character of the woods itself is affecting the character that you're involved with, the character that you're intimately understanding and reading about. Yes, I get that. But yeah, I mean, if your whole point was to make make nature your enemy, then yes, good on you. Good way to go about that. But if your position or your metamorphosis is to eventually get us somewhere, else, you're you're putting us in a different territory that we didn't really expect, to go. So, that's just something to think about, and something to acknowledge with the different writing styles of the American writers right now that I've read, and then the British writers. That isn't necessarily true with the young adult literature crowd. They very much follow the battle standard of the Brits. Justin Somper with Vampirates, and let's say Donnelly with her version of the Beauty and the Beast story. Lost in lost in the library or lost in a book. That's what it was. And both books are fantastic. Like Vampires, Demons of the Ocean. You've got Beauty and the Beast, Lost in a Book. Amazing storytelling. You have amazing, contrast of smart information. And you want to know a tactician on information input would be Ernest Cline and Ready Player One. Like, that book kicked major ass for me because it was relevant to me. I'm like an older millennial, so it was easier for me to get into and enjoy. I was very much involved in that novel when I was reading it, and I really fell in love with the characters and how I envisioned things. The movie did it real justice. I was actually really impressed with the film, but it was just one of those things. So it's all right. So it looks like I'm not able to get into my Creatacast email for some odd reason. I don't know, but I'm gonna log back into my my Google account and really understand why things are the way they are. So finally able to get back in there. So, okay. So moving forward with the show, I did have some submissions on my Creatacast Gmail. But for some reason, I'm not able to access it, saying that I don't have a Creatacast Gmail, even though I know I do. So I'm feeling rather upset with that. But, in order to move the flow of the show along, I'm not going to let that defeat me. But I will refrain from reading somebody other than those who I've already spoke to work, because I don't want this show attacked for reading work that wasn't given the all clear to read. So that is rather disappointing that I'm unable right now to get into that email and really get after those submissions to the show. But that is okay. I will work through that mess. So let's talk about holiday prompts. I know the show is really going to be amazing by the the fact that people are tuning in. People are recognizing that this is a creative platform for them. And I'm not really hiding the fact that I enjoy reading, other people's work, and I really enjoy getting people's information out there. That way, somebody listening on the airwaves can listen and say, you know what, hey, that was a very quality story. Let me reach out to that author, or find a way to reach out to that author and change their universe. You never know, or you may inspire a budding young author like yourself and really up the ante, so to speak, on being able to, get your work on the show, get your work read, and have that disseminated to all of my listeners. So moving forward, just think about the concept of one, it's, if you do get picked to be read, then you will end up in the digital magazine that I'm still working to put that together. Once I iron out the details and I get the really good battle standard and battle rhythm of this show, then I think it's going to really ignite a lot of fires under some writers' butts and encourage them to, get it achieved, get it done. Now, for you undergrads out there, a lot of you may not even know about some conferences that are out there that will hugely benefit you as a writer. I was really blessed and able to go to the Northern Undergraduate Literature Conference in Ogden, Utah at Weber State University. I got to meet hundreds of amazing writers, amazing people, and it is so worth you submitting your work for that conference. And then having the ability to get out there and read your work, and they take submissions for, I think, dang near everything: poetry, essays, creative nonfiction, fiction, and it's a great opportunity for professional authors, professionals in the field, to take a look at your work and to see your work possibly in a journal if you are, picked up and viewed, picked up and published in their publication. So it's worth doing. It's worth, going after, and it's an amazing experience unto itself. Myself and a few other authors in at Arizona State all went, and we converged on the conference and the experience and made the most of it. Ogden is beautiful with the backdrop of the mountains right there. A lot of hiking trails, good little community right there. And you got some decent sized cities nearby. I mean, Ogden's not small. You got, down the road, if you, it's not too super close to Salt Lake. You need to drive like an hour and a half to get to Salt Lake from Ogden, but there's Layton down the road, Clearfield, Sunset, Roy. Roy's got a really cool downtown. Downtown Ogden's really cool too. Just know that if you do submit for that conference, make sure you do it early enough so that they can process your work, accept you to the conference, and invite, and you get that invitation to go. And I would encourage all undergraduates, regardless if you're a creative writer or not. I don't care if your degree is in psychology. I don't care if your degree is in mathematics or, whatever it's going to be, engineering whatsoever. it is always cool to experience a conference firsthand and kind of understand and having your work accepted to a conference. Now, if you are going to submit to the Northern Undergraduate Literature Conference, please, please, please at least have one of your favorite professors take a look at your work prior to submitting your work, and you're going to want to be super crucial on your edits. So definitely put it in the format that they want you to submit it in. Make sure it's submitted on time, and gain that valuable experience as an undergrad. That way, when you are at the master's level, you're a graduate student, you're going to much larger conferences where you're presenting a paper on a very important issue, or you make a groundbreaking discovery, somewhere at in your education, and they invite you to present at a conference. You're prepared for what's going to happen. You're prepared mentally. You're prepared physically. And you'll understand the demands of a conference. And there are so many things that go on at the Northern Undergraduate Literature Conference that are just super amazing. There are, kind of like an open mic night towards the end of the evenings. A lot of people go out and eat together. A lot of people stay at the same hotel. So it's really cool to be in that element for quite a while, and it's the first adventure that you as an educator or as an educated person are making with your academic stride. So it's something very valuable and near and dear to my heart that I hope a lot of people get to experience. So get after it. Understand that you do have and you do possess that ability to get there. You do possess that ability and that know-how and that ingenuity as a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior to be accepted and to be backed by the institution and to represent your institution at a big conference. Worth it to go. Now, there are a few others, a few other conferences around the U.S., for different things. If you... as a writer, challenge yourself. Look into other disciplines and do the research. Once you get high enough in academics, it's purely, and once you have the format down of putting together an APA paper, MLA paper, whatever have you, then it becomes a game of research because the formatting is already going to take care of itself. It then becomes research and literature analysis and analytics and providing a hypothesis followed by sound argumentation. So that's the drive and that's the goal and the impetus of academics, because as an educated individual, you're entering into that much larger academic conversation. You're entering into that much larger conversation that may stem from as early as the 18, 19, even as early as Aristotle, if you're a philosopher, and, Pluto, whatnot, and Rene Descartes, whoever, if that's your field, psychology, philosophy, whatever have you, and you're entering into that conversation, and just know that it's okay to stand on the shoulder of titans and speak your words, speak your voice, speak your mind. And it's worth going after. Now, not everybody that goes to college is cut out for that type of experience at college. Academics is purely enjoyable for those who love writing, who love learning, who love research, and who really get a kick out of publishing their work and have it well received by the academic community at large. Of course, once you've gotten yourself into that upper echelon of writing, you've gotten yourself into that upper echelon of academics, it's kind of a drug and you're going to want to stay in it as long as you can. However, it is okay to, as a writer, especially if you're a creative writer and you're doing your creative writing undergrad, you're doing your MFA, I would so encourage those students to jump on this podcast and, let your work shine. You may not be, picked to be read for that week, but because this is so early in the show, so far I've accepted everybody that submitted, and unfortunately I'm dealing with issues about switching accounts, and I'll find out, why that's a thing. But I'm gonna resolve this issue for next show. I really am upset that I had a little hindrance there, but to make sure it absolutely gets to me from now on, folks, I am super okay with you getting it to the D Welch. So that's Delta Whiskey Echo Lima Charlie Hotel 9627 at gmail.com. That way I know for sure that you're going to, that I'm going to get it, receive it, and disseminate it. Okay. So, I'm going to figure out the other email issue. And then once I do get to the bottom of that, folks, that one will be the primary. But right now I'm definitely okay with you submitting your work to me. And, I just want to reiterate to my listeners right now that I am very passionate about writing. I love writing. I love reading. There are a lot of people out there that are just really good readers. And God bless them, because without our readers, we would not be where we're at as writers. We wouldn't be encouraged. Maybe for some of us, we wouldn't be encouraged to, try and get our stories out. Writers write so readers can read. And that's just been the battle plan. A lot of people just love the entertainment aspect of a book. They love the escape. They love being able to dive into your universe that you created. And just think about that. Think of all the books you've read. It's kind of a little bit of a psychology point today, but think of all the work you've read, enjoyed, consumed, and that, that confident, almost sad, melancholic feeling when you turn that last page and you finished it, and maybe there's like some editors or authors' notes in there, and you even read that just to make sure you've read every word in that novel, and then you get that satisfaction of closing that novel. You've completed it. You've read it in its entirety. You were amazed. You were blown away. You cried. You laughed. Whatever you felt reading that novel, I'm proud of you. I'm so freaking proud of you that you did that you read it. You've read it in its entirety. And we have an awakening of literacy. And it goes all the way back, at least, into my childhood. It started with folks like Gary Paulson, and of course, we had the classics when, I was younger. We had Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Books, Jack London, Sherlock Holmes, and I'm sure, we had the Hardy Boys, we had a bunch of other authors, but, R.L. Stine really kicked it off for my generation, followed by, and really, God bless her, J.K. Rowling, and, the Harry Potter series really, ignited a lot of readers' passion into reading it. It created a whole generation of fans and readers, and now with the comic books the way they're going, and I'm not gonna ever deny comics as a literature. You don't do it. They are fantastic literature, fantastic storytelling, fantastic hero stories that are the lifeblood of our culture. We see it because we go to Comic-Con every year, and we have an event that marks the fact that, yes, these stories have a huge societal and cultural impact, and all the way from the actors, the writers, the producers, and everybody, those individuals forever change lives because of that. The actors are so amazing these days. They go to hospitals, they do charity events, and they're really, they're really superheroes in their own right, being so giving as an artist, because, it's amazing to be rewarded for your work, and especially as a writer and an author and a producer, my hero, Sylvester Stallone. A lot of people are like, well, wait, the guy with the horrible speaking impediment? Yeah, that guy. He wrote Rocky. He was one of the most prolific individuals of my childhood. I'll always appreciate the work that Sylvester Stallone did as a writer, as an actor, as a producer, as a director. I'm always going to value his work ethic. I'm always going to value his storytelling and craft, and everything that goes with that. And then I grew up reading a lot of horror fiction. So, thank the Lord for Dean Koontz. Thank the Lord for Stephen King. And his story is impeccable. And for those who have, paved the way, like Michael Crichton and, just so many authors from my childhood that have made the difference in the way we view entertainment, the way we receive information, and altering the lives of, millions of kids, millions of adults around the world. And we see it, like we know firsthand how the twin, producers of Stranger Things was so affected and so emboldened by the creative work of so many individuals, of the 1980s and early 90s, that we have kind of a reawakening of those feelings in Stranger Things. And, the acting just gets better, with time, and we see amazing actors doing amazing things on film. And now with the advent of YouTube, we have so many, minor, mini producers, mini directors, and people that are falling in love with the craft. And, and a lot of writing goes into a lot of the shows. A lot of writing goes into the making of some of the videos and some of the skits and some of the characters. And, writing has taken off into so many new avenues. And a lot of people, when I was getting my degree, especially early on in 2008, they're like, well, what are you going to do with an English literature degree? Or what are you going to do with creative writing? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You almost want to look at them and like, what can't I do? A lot of people's retort would be like, well, that doesn't make you an engineer. I get it, but a lot of people don't have that passion. A lot of people don't have that desire to be an engineer. They don't have a desire to utilize tools. And who says that you can't be a damn good mechanic and a damn good engineer and a creative writer? I mean, there are people out there that work in a multitude of fields, a multitude of backgrounds, and have a multitude of experiences to bring to the table that it's not even surprising when they do release a book. You're like, well, you almost get to that point, well, what the fuck took you so long? What made you wait to get the books and the stories out there? I was so blessed as a young man in college, and one of my good friends from high school, and I had no idea he had any interest in writing whatsoever, but, he's an amazing guy. His name is Clayton Phillip. If you haven't read Wild by Clayton Phillip, you are missing out. It's a fucking treat. Read that book. I would encourage you to go out and find it on Amazon and read it. A very nuanced, zombie type tale, and it was very, very appropriately done. Definitely leaves you open for a second novel there, Clayton. You better get it out there. Just kidding, but serious at the same time. But yeah, so, if you get into that novel, it's very well done. And I never knew, last I heard, and I hadn't talked to him for almost a decade before that. It was like, last I knew, you were like doing like a junior police thing, and you were looking into a career in law enforcement, or you were, looking to do something in town and maybe go to school. I don't, readily recall, but at the same time, when he produced the book, I was like, well, fuck me. That's freaking amazing. And I'm sitting here like my whole goal and aspirations leaving high school were like, I want to see my name in print. I want to, be able to, have something that I wrote get somewhere. But I felt inadequate. I felt I wasn't ready. And I guess that's my own negative self-talk seeping in. And a lot of writers have that, unfortunately. We do have our own negative self-talk saying we're not good enough, or maybe we had a bad critique in class, or we had bad feedback, or we didn't even have positive feedback. Like we had feedback where people wrote, oh, well, this is good. Well, what the fuck good was good about it? Like, tell me what worked, what didn't work. Where in the mechanics did I fuck up? Or was there continuity issues in my storytelling? Or, hey, were my dialogue tags, and I do funny things with dialogue tags, I really do. And if you don't know what a dialogue tag is, it's usually people say he said, or, Dan replied, or whatever have you. I make mine extra long. They're almost like little mini paragraphs with information, but I do that. Some writers do that. And that's just something that I've picked up as a writer. But my point is you can never be surprised with who produces a novel, who produces a book. And, you've got to, get to the point where you're even adventurous enough to pick up a novel by a self-published author, or, go to those, bookstores and grab a book off the shelf that was, $1. And then, come to find out that there was somebody who wrote 2 amazing books and never wrote a book again. And you wonder why. Like, maybe at the time they, were facing health problems. They died broke and penniless, but their work impacted you. So that's why I love to say writing is kind of immortal. It's an immortal process that, you may right now be writing in 2018, and then some kid in 2042 or 2052 or 2087 or 2100 is going to read your work one day, and they're going to be like, well, that was freaking amazing. Just imagine the minds of those people and what was going on back then. And of course, we might be viewed from the lovable aspect of, well, that's this older generation. They were quaint, and we have all these super technologies, and people are amazing and super advanced. Or we might be looked at with the lens of, oh my God, how did they do it? It's amazing. And I'm never gonna question the validity of some of our ancient ancestors having that ability to be Renaissance men, to be savants, and create and do and master things that today would be kind of a stretch for a human being. I don't put that beyond the capacity of other human beings of the past, present, or even the future. So keep writing alive, keep reading alive, keep reading, keep writing. Please get your work to the show. Please submit to dwelch9627@gmail.com. Find my author page on Facebook, and find my page on Facebook, and get a hold of me, and we can talk shop and talk books, and and please work on getting into the show, and and building the empire I'm trying to build for you guys. I mean, ultimately my listeners, my writing constituents are going to be those who benefit from the work that I'm doing now. Like I said, I want to create scholarships that creative writers can achieve, can desire after, and, can move forward with their education. And, and that's ultimately what I want to do with this podcast. I want to make this show reach epic proportions, but I can't do that without you. I do have a Patreon page too. I'm working on that, and once I get that set up, I might utilize YouTube maybe as more of a platform for Creatacast, but I'm still going to get it out on the podcast shows and tie it in a dual way. And that's the dream, and that's ultimately I want to have my own studio where I have guests and everything like that. But that's dreaming in the future. In the present, though, you can get in early on the show. You can get in, you can get your work out there, and you can say, well, hell, I was in that first digital magazine created by Creatacast back in, 2018 or 2019, whenever the digital magazine is going to get released, or I can say, you can say, hey, I got to speak with, David Welch firsthand, the host, and, it was a great experience, or it was a shitty experience, whatever experience you have with me, wrong, right, or indifferent, it'll be that experience of, hey, this show made an impact, and I want this show to make an impact. I want reading to make an impact. I would, one of the questions I can't wait to ask authors is, what are you reading right now? What are you reading right now that's shaping the way you write? Or what event happened to you in your lifetime that made you pick up a pen and decide to say, I have a story to tell, or I have a poem to convey, or I have a limerick, or I have a lyric to write, or I have reflection on, this piece of information that pertains to my life somehow. Good reading platforms out there for those who love to read and get ideas from. Medium. If you have not jumped on the Medium bandwagon, please do so. Amazing articles are being published through Medium. You can download the app and definitely get knee deep into that. They have articles, a little bit of articles for everybody. If you think it's way outside the frame and you think you've thought of a question that, nobody else has kind of expounded upon, look it up in Medium. It's probably there. Some sort of Weisenheimer from a different university or a different part of the land has, thought up the same thing, but maybe not at the same angle that you have. Maybe you can get your blog started and get your work out there. So I love Medium. Huge fan of the platform. Love reading it. If I had the money, I would donate to that myself, but I don't. But keep it alive. Keep it alive. Keep it going. Download it. And, make that app. And hopefully, one day I can have an app of my own and people can get knee deep into the show. Or if you just download it on iTunes, it's fantastic. I'm going to use this, minute to give a parting apology to those who have already submitted to the show and were not able to be read today. I'm going to work out the bugs. I'm going to work out the mechanics of what happened and my inability to switch from my Welch Gmail to my Creatacast. And I'll figure that out. Definitely. So that's what we're going to handle. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to make things freaking happen. Okay. So I am carrying every single person that submitted to Creatacast, the Creatacast Gmail. Carrying you over for next week's show. Don't worry about that. You're not going to be omitted. You're not going to be missed. You will be read. And I will ensure that I get a chance to look at those emails and apologize. Because for some reason, while at work, I can get into my Creatacast Gmail. But while I'm here at home, for some reason, it's not letting me log in. Doesn't even recognize me as having a Creatacast 2018 at gmail.com. So let me get to the bottom of it. Let me figure it out with Google, and we will make sure that, it gets handled. And again, huge apologies for not getting those read. And again, if you've come here to listen to poetry or short fiction, today's dialogue was mainly about the different stylistic things that I see in American and British writers, and just kind of my love for the direction of the show, and just some observations about the challenge for Christmas. So Christmas is the theme. Christmas is what I want everybody to shoot for the next submission round of next week. And let's make it happen, folks. Let's make next week's show humongous. Share this on Twitter. Share this in your many different social media platforms. And get this out there. And then get on my show. Love you very much. Have a great day.